Humility is the ladder to heaven. In transparency, I stole this from a book called Humility by Andrew Murray. But this image comes to mind, and we have an image of humility. But when I'm thinking of humility, and when I'm thinking of this image of a ladder to heaven, I think back to a church service that I went to where there was a painter, an artist, and as the service was going, he's painting, and he's envisioning what he sees in the service. And he makes this nightscape, and there is an earthly section of it, and it has a horizon, but then there's a single white ladder that goes up to heaven, to the stars. I searched the internet for that picture. It is not there as far as I can tell. And at the time when I saw this painting, it was for sale for $250, and I had just gotten married, and we did not have that. Otherwise, the painting would be here with me today. But this image of humility as a ladder to heaven, and that wasn't the name of the art piece, but what I saw 20 years ago started something in me, started a struggle, started a path, started a way of understanding. And this gospel reading we had today, we have these two characters, two of my favorite characters, John and James. Brothers who speak their mind and don't really take the consequences of what they have to say. They don't really worry about it. They just come in guns blazing. They are the sons of Zebedee. Jesus refers to them as the sons of thunder. But they come up to Jesus and they say, when you become the Messiah, when you have risen to power, when you are the one in charge, we want to be second and third in command. Now, to their credit, they showed some humility. They didn't say who was supposed to be second and third. They were willing to let Jesus pick that one. But they asked for these positions of power and authority. And Jesus is just struck that two of the people that he had chosen for leadership, two of the ones who he's been working with, missed the point. They still see power as something to attain. They still see leadership as a way of power grabbing. There was an aversion to humility 2,000 years ago, just as there still is today. In the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, I'm not going to read you the definition of humility. Instead, I'm going to point out that there are 6 synonyms for humility. There are 24 antonyms. For every one synonym for humility, we've come up with 4 ways of saying the opposite. I think this speaks to our feelings towards humility. And yet, this idea that humility is the ladder to heaven, why is that so hard to reach out and start climbing that ladder? To climb the ladder of humility is to see each and every person as better than ourselves. And this is absolutely hard to do. This is one of the hardest things for me. It's easy enough to love our daughters, to love our sons, to love our wives, to love our husbands, to love our brothers and our sisters. These are the people that we care deeply about, and we value them above ourselves. We want them to feel loved, so we serve them, and we treat them the way that Christ wants us to treat them. They are the people that we dearly love and feel drawn to serve. Then there's those other people. The coworker who comes in late, the boss who demands more than can be accomplished in the few hours that we have allotted, that grocery store clerk who wants to talk rather than ring up your groceries, wasting our precious time. The person in front of us in a car who doesn't pay attention when the light changes from red to green. How are we laying our lives down for these people? The ones that are hard to love. The ones who, where I come from, it would be easier to say, bless their heart, than it is to ask, how's your day going? What can I do to make your job easier? Or even to ask ourselves, what might they be dealing with? What might they be thinking about? We're called by Jesus to be servants to others. The words of Mark are hard to hear. I know I don't want to be a servant to those people who annoy me. I don't want to be a servant to those people who waste my time. I don't want to be a servant to those people who get in my way. But Jesus doesn't ask me to think about my time or my way or even my feelings. Jesus asks me, and Jesus asks us, to think about their time and their feelings and their way. Humility is the ladder to heaven. One of my favorite leadership books, it's called Good to Great. And in the book, it walks through all sorts of things that can take an organization from being good to great. Name of the book. And the key influence that they find, if a company is to go from good to great, according to Jim Collins, the author, is what he calls a level 5 leader. And oddly enough, this secular book, this study on economics, found that ultimately a humble leader is the thing that takes a company to the top. And this is something that goes against much of my American mindset and what I see as conventional wisdom. The idea that the absolute best leaders are those who listen to others, value their input, and are willing to be wrong. These are the leaders who transform organizations, companies, and individuals. Humility is a ladder to heaven. Humility looks very different for each and every one of us. And I don't know what humility looks like for you, but I know what humility feels like when I'm in the presence of someone else who is more humble than I am. When I'm in the presence of a truly humble person, they don't think that they're worthless. Instead, they're very confident. What sets them apart is that and what shows their humility is that they have the confidence that they are loved by God, and that there is enough love coming from God that I can be loved too. They see me as one of God's children, and they treat me like the child of a king. Each of us here is a child of God. Each of us here is also a servant of God. We are called not to lord our authority as a child of God over others. We are instead invited to treat each person that we meet as a daughter or son of God, a child of the King, to honor, respect, and love them in a way that makes them feel special, honored, worthy. Humility is a ladder to heaven, and we are called to model a life that lifts others up so that they can start climbing that ladder to heaven.